And that's where things get a little scary. I do not need to do a paw variation in coda ever in my life. We tend to like jump to like, well, I'm not doing this role because of this reason and that reason and this because she's doing that and I'm not doing that. Remembering that you are human before you are a dancer truly is the most important thing. I approach this Nutcracker differently than I've ever approached anything. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Goldie, and if you are not new here, then you know that I just got done doing 17 shows of Nutcracker after not dancing for 5 years, which is insane. So we have a lot to talk about. I also am in my childhood bedroom in LA because right after my last show, my boyfriend and I got on a 5:45 a.m. flight to visit my family for the holidays. This is actually perfect because I had to get ready anyways, so it's almost as if we're like in the dressing room putting on our makeup while we gossip. And I'm trying to cover up my chin as fast as possible. I feel like my body is like detoxing from the madness that was Nutcracker. I asked you guys to ask me questions over on my Instagram, and if you're not following me on Instagram, I don't know what you're doing. I am so excited to get into all of your questions because you guys asked me some good ones that I've been dying to share anyways. Let's get ready together and chat all about Nutcracker. We're gonna start with the first question I got, which is actually like the perfect question to start this video off of. This person asked, what made you decide to do the Nutcracker? And I think I answered a few of these questions in my video that I posted before my Theater Week vlogs about how I'm doing it. I'm just gonna give you like the Spark Notes version. This is the question that I get like the most, is like, what on earth made you decide to get out of retirement and do the Nutcracker after not dancing for 5 years? I wish I had this like deep and profound answer. It honestly was kind of like a YOLO. Why not? If I'm looking for the deeper reason and the deeper answer to this question of what made me do it, I've gotten pretty comfortable in my life and my job is very cushy. I don't have like a lot of stress. Maybe I just wanted a challenge and I picked quite the challenge to jump back into dancing. When you retire from your company, the biggest thing that you miss is performing. It's not all the other stuff because the other stuff kind of sucks, but I missed performing and I missed being part of something like bigger than myself and training for something. I thought 17 shows of the Nutcracker was like the perfect way to like get a taste of that world and then just like getting out of that world when I was done. That's kind of what made me do it. A great way to get in shape. I wanted to meet new people and I saw a flyer for auditions at the studio that I do open class at and I decided to audition. The next question that I get asked like every single day on my Instagram is what roles I played. It's not that I didn't want to share what I was doing, but the production that I was a part of, as much as I loved it and enjoyed it, and if you're watching it, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, it was a little disorganized when it came to casting. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm telling you this, that I did not know my casting until like 2 days before the first weekend of shows. And I know that sounds insane. This isn't like an AGMA company. But anyways, I was a snowflake, a flower, I was marzipan, I was Chinese tea, and then in this version they had like a few roles that I've never done before that are called different things. We had something called fairies, which was like the top of the show, and it was literally, I'm not kidding, I was probably on stage for like 2 8 counts. In the top of Act 2, they had something called maids. It was this little dance to kind of like greet the Sugar Plum and Cavalier. So those were all my roles. The only thing that interchanged throughout the shows were my Chinese and my marzipan. Every other show I did every other part. So I did fairies, snow, maids, flowers, every single show, which was insane. The next question someone asked was, what was the hardest part about coming back and performing? And this is an interesting one because I feel like performing was the easiest part for me. And I know that sounds insane. Truly the hardest part about coming back was a mixture of obviously like the physical. When I tell you I have not danced in 5 years, I mean nothing. Like I probably put my pointe shoes on 2 or 3 times tops since leaving my company. Yes, the physical aspect of it was the challenge, but to be honest, it was mental. That's like the hardest part about ballet. Yes, it's really difficult on your body, but the mental aspect makes everything feel 10 times harder. Just like learning all the choreography alone was difficult. My brain hasn't had to work like that in 5 years, and it's definitely like a different part of your brain. Learning all of that choreography and all of those parts in the shortest span of time that I've ever prepared for a show. We were only in rehearsals for like 3 weeks. Not to mention, I was still working full time at the studio that I teach at. So I was only in rehearsals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the rest of the cast had Monday through Friday to learn everything. So every Monday that I came back into rehearsal, I was playing catch up, which definitely was not the best situation for someone who is a little out of practice in the first place, and just like feeling like my body could do certain things back when I was in a company and realizing that maybe I couldn't do certain things that I used to be able to do. I think that was a little bit challenging. Also, like the ego aspect of it. I am 29 years old. As many times as I could say I'm just doing this Nutcracker for fun and nothing really matters and I don't care about casting and all the things that I tried to tell myself to like keep a level head, there were disappointments. There were disappointments with casting, there were disappointments in my ability. Certain things that used to be easy for me felt hard all of a sudden. I forgot how like petty being in the studio could be every single day. You're in the studio with the same people, we're rehearsing the same things, and your body is tired and your brain is tired. It's exhausting. Performing, that was the easy part. Once I got on stage, I didn't have to worry about any of that, and I could just enjoy myself, but it was the rehearsals and the learning the choreography was probably what I struggled with the most. But now, like looking back at it, if I do it again, the choreography wasn't that intense. I think my brain was just like scrambling because it was just in shock that I was making it do what I was expecting it to do for 3 weeks. And that is a perfect segue into my next question. Would I do it again? I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do it again. It was super fun and I'm really grateful that I did it. And at the same time, like I was ready for it to be done, if I'm being honest. And again, maybe I wouldn't have felt that way if I wasn't also doing my full-time job. I was burning the candle at both ends. Doing Nutcracker alone is hard enough as it is, and teaching full-time is hard enough as it is without Nutcracker. So what I was doing was pretty extreme. And at the same time, if I did do it again, I wouldn't have that same stress of learning everything and getting used to the production and the choreography and the people. And I think it would be a much less stressful experience. And again, at the same time, who knows where I'm gonna be in a year. Life changes very quickly. I have no idea what I'm gonna want to be doing next year, where I'm going to be. I like to just go with the flow. So I know that was like a very vague answer, but who knows? Maybe I want to, maybe I don't. Is that like a good enough answer? I don't know. It also changes every like 3 seconds. Some days I'm like, oh, this was so much fun, let's go audition. And then the other moment I'm like, fuck this. Like I had my fill. Let's go back to my happy life without point shoes and leotards and stress. This next question is kind of interesting. This person asked, how do you recharge or reset yourself after a long rehearsal day? And this kind of goes into the conversation of like things that I did during this Nutcracker compared to things that I did when I was in a company were very different. When I was dancing in a company, I was much younger. I was like 23, 24. I was pretty lucky when it came to my body. I didn't have too many injuries. The recovery wasn't too intense. Obviously I had to take care of myself, but it wasn't that extreme, and my body was used to being in rehearsals compared to this Nutcracker where my body was like in full shock. I'm 29 years old, and again, I'm a broken record, but after 5 years of not dancing, things were hurting that have like never hurt before in my life. So ice baths were a big thing. I just put my feet in an ice bucket at the end of the rehearsal day, which like saved me. It immediately takes that like throb out of your feet. I really had to like roll out my feet and make sure that I was like taking care of them. And it was like a lot of like preventative care. It wasn't like I was like nursing an injury. It was doing all of those things because I couldn't afford to get an injury. That was like a little bit of my recovery, and also just like going home and detaching from that world and having my boyfriend there and talking about other things and seeing my other friends outside of the ballet world was kind of how I recovered and reset. When you're in it and that's all you're talking about and that's all you're doing, that's when things get insane. You need to like take a step back. It's Nutcracker. It's not that deep. So you are able to be ready for it the next morning. I think that was like my saving grace for sure. This next question is, how did you get back into dancing shape, as in like dancing on point or doing jumps? And I wish I had this like in-depth routine that I did, and looking back I really like should have done a little bit more than I did. But the beauty of being where I'm at in my career, or just like in my life, is that I wasn't trying to like really impress anyone. I wasn't trying to move up in the ranks, or I wasn't trying to be the sugar plum or impress anyone in the room or the front of the room. So that first day when I was in class, I really was doing anything that I felt like I needed to do, and I wasn't doing combinations more than I had to. I wasn't trying to get my leg up super high. So if anything, like my prep to get my body back in shape was doing class and doing the rehearsals, but at like my own pace as much as I could. Obviously I didn't want to be like disrespectful to the front of the room, and at the same time, like, I'm not gonna do something that I know will hurt me the next day just because I feel like I have to. And I think that is like a big shift, because back in the day, or if you're in like a normal company, there's an expectation, and if you're not doing something or you're like modifying an exercise, the front of the room will either call you out or not cast you or look at you like you are doing something wrong. At this point of my life, in this situation, I don't really care. I'm gonna do what's best for me, whether or not it pleases the front of the room, because that was like the beauty of this Nutcracker. I was doing it for me. I didn't really care about what anyone else felt or thought or did or didn't do. I was just trying to enjoy myself and take care of myself and dance for fun. I don't even know if this is answering that question, but I wasn't training before this Nutcracker, and it wasn't like I was gearing up to like be at the top level of my ability, because it's impossible to do that. I haven't been dancing in 5 years. There's no way that I was expecting myself to be at that same level when I retired back in 2019. And I just tried to like genuinely be kind to myself and my body, because if I was trying to push it, I wouldn't have made it through. I would have injured myself, no doubt, and I did not need to be doing that, that's for sure. This is another perfect segue. Are you approaching things different than you have in the past? I feel like I approached this Nutcracker and this situation differently than I approach anything in my career. And it was super empowering, and it was super interesting to kind of like put into practice everything that I try to preach on my Instagram or on my YouTube after therapy. Because if I'm being honest, I kind of started my therapy like right at the end of when I was dancing professionally, and I always thought how much stronger I would have been if I was in therapy during my career. And this was like the perfect opportunity to kind of like test that theory, and I was really proud of myself. I was proud of how I was taking care of myself. I was proud of how I was advocating for myself and communicating with other people. Obviously I'm human, so I still made mistakes and things were still difficult, and at the same time, I think the biggest takeaway was that I didn't like give my power away to anyone or to anything. Like if I was disappointed in something, or I wanted to learn a role that I wasn't cast for, or this is how I'm feeling today, this is what I need to do. And my therapist would always tell me that I'm not a mind reader, and I think that's a big thing where people get heady. It's like we're trying to decode what the front of the room thinks of us and why they're making certain decisions based on X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, like, we have no control over that, and it's way less personal than I think we all think it is. We tend to like jump to like, well, I'm not doing this role because of this reason and that reason, and that's because she's doing that and I'm not doing that. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like logistics. Being able to like surrender to it and like not really care as much is like this like superpower. Yeah, to answer that question, I approach this Nutcracker differently than I've ever approached anything. And it also comes with age. Let's see. Okay, let's answer a fluffy one. This question was, what's your favorite role you've ever done in the Nutcracker? Back when I was in Kansas City, I did Arabian, which their version is really fun. It's one girl with, I can't remember, 2 boys, 3 boys? I think it's 2 main guys and then 2 like, I almost said backup dancers, but like essentially backup dancers. I think that is my favorite role that I've ever done, but a role that I would love to do, even though like I'm talking like I'm still like dancing, would be Snow Queen. I truly feel like Snow Queen is the most beautiful music of the show. Sugar Plum is good and fine and whatever. We love a Sugar Plum, but I don't need to be Sugar Plum. If I could choose between Snow Queen and Sugar Plum, Snow Queen any day. It's like so glamorous and so gorge and like not that much pressure. Like, I do not need to do a paw variation in coda ever in my life. I loved Arabian. but I guess Snow Queen is the one on my bucket list. What makes the Nutcracker special for dancers? The Nutcracker is special because it's the only time in the ballet world that every company is doing the exact same production across the world, essentially. It's not as popular in like European companies, but if you are in a company in the United States, you are doing the Nutcracker. And it's kind of this like interesting bond throughout all of the ballet world. We're all in it together. It's like a marathon through the holiday season. The majority of those dancers have grown up doing the Nutcracker. So I think that's truly what makes it special, because you kind of like grow up throughout the ranks of the Nutcracker. When you're little, you're a mouse, and then a soldier, and then a party girl, and then you get into a company, and then you're Snow and Flowers, and Marzipan, and Chinese, and then maybe you're Dewdrop, and Snow Queen, and Sugar Plum. So it's kind of this like rite of passage that we've all grown up doing. We all know the music, we all know the roles, and no matter what company you're in, it's almost like a bond that you can't really escape from, which is kind of like a cool concept. I think a lot of dancers love to hate on the Nutcracker because it's every year it's the same stuff, and it's like, oh my god, you have like 40 shows and you have to get through it. But it's also like kind of special too. And I say that out loud. And then let's end it on this question, because I think it's the perfect question to wrap it up, and I can't even imagine how long this video is going to be. But the last question is, what advice do you have for dancers, young and old? I have like a million things that I would say. Biggest umbrella answer is to dance for yourself. Dance for yourself and do it for you, because if you're doing it for any other reason, it's not going to be as fun. If you are doing it just for the joy and the enjoyment of it, you are going to have a blast. And I think that is like something that young dancers should remember their whole career, and older dancers, I guess I'm an old dancer now, which is kind of insane. That's it. Like, if you're not doing it for the enjoyment of it, I have no idea why you're doing it. But the other piece of advice, that is the most important piece of advice that I kept telling myself, is that you still have to remember like the human part of your life. I think that's what saved me. If I just allowed myself to be in the Nutcracker world and only focus on that, I would crumble. You get so involved and you start like decoding things that don't even matter, and you start forgetting what's actually important in the world and what's not, and that's where things get a little scary. So I have screamed it on my channel since the beginning of my channel, but remembering that you are human before you are a dancer, I think truly is the most important thing, and the most important takeaway that I would tell someone who is 5 years old all the way through 29 years old, because that's it. If you forget the importance of being human outside of the ballet world, you become a shell of yourself. It feels like you immediately take your power away, and then you have no strength. You have no worth, because it's all tied to an outside situation, or the Nutcracker, or your roles, or the director. And I think that is the most valuable piece of advice that I have learned throughout my life, career, ballet world, non-ballet world. That's why I say it pretty much whenever I can on here, because you are human before you are a dancer, or before you are whatever label you've decided to give yourself. So I think that is a perfect way to end this video. I have had so much fun sharing everything with you. Another person asked me if it was exhausting documenting it and sharing it on YouTube, or like posting TikToks throughout this Nutcracker season. And to be honest, it was the opposite for me. It like gave me life. It was so much fun to kind of like put it on record that I did this and that I was experiencing it. And I've shared so much with you guys that like, how could I not share this with you? This was huge that I got back into it. It's been so much fun, and I am so grateful to all of you that have asked me questions or that have followed me throughout everything, because I have truly taken you on a journey over the past 4 years, and I have no idea what the next chapter of this journey is. Whatever it is, I'm excited to share it with you. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions, and I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. Maybe I'll do a part 2, but I'm not going anywhere. You can always message me and we can chat. And now I have to like get ready for the day, because I can't keep my hair like this, and I'm in LA, so I have to go do fun stuff. But thanks for watching, and if you haven't watched my Nutcracker theater vlogs yet, go binge them. They're super fun. I guess I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Happy Nutcracker season.